Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brien Hanley. Welcome back to the Big 12 Insiders. Today, we've got our man, Chad Brindle, who covers the Cincinnati Bearcats 24/7 Sports, talking a little Bearcats football. Look, I understand Bearcat fans. We got a love-hate relationship. I hated you during football season. I loved you during basketball season. And both times, you kind of let me down. So it is what it is. We're going to talk about that today. So I appreciate Chad giving us her time. Before we get started, remember, as always, everybody, remember to like, follow, subscribe, continue to get in that comment section like you always do, and always hit the notification bell so you know exactly when Big 12 Insiders content comes out. Chad, been a minute. How are you doing, my man?
I'm good, man. It's getting through that. We're almost on the other side of it. Once we get to July, it feels like, all right, it's here. Let's rock and roll. We're almost there. There's some basketball workouts going on, UC, and then they had the unveiling of the new palace at the University of Cincinnati. The $134 million indoor practice facility had the ribbon cutting last week.
Nice.
So there's been a little bit going on, but getting ready for football season, man.
Yeah, I'm getting ready. You're right. I always call it the dead period. There's not a ton in football going on. The main thing is you just hope guys get through the offseason without getting injured. We've seen it at a couple of places already where guys just working out get injured out for the year, which is absolutely awful. Having said all that stuff, look, Cincinnati last year, 5-2 to start the season, then collapse. I don't even know if it was necessarily bad football. You could speak to that more than I could. There were some games that they just didn't win. Some games that they weren't in the football game. There were some of those, but didn't get a bowl game. And I think that was kind of the goal. Obviously, it was the goal last year, at least one of them. And you had several opportunities to get there. Is this kind of a make or break season for Scott Satterfield this year?
I think it definitely needs to continue. I mean, 3 wins his first year, 5 wins last year. I think it's got to get to 7. I don't think 6-6. Last year was the 6-win year, right? Year 2, you stabilized. That they needed to get to 6 last year, and they didn't. I think 7, and talk to some of the guys that host shows and are with me on the Bearcat Journal podcast network. They think 8. They think he needs to get to 8.
Okay.
And I've said to that, what you're gonna call for his head if he gets to 7? I don't think so. I think he'll be okay with 7. You might not be thrilled, but I think you're gonna be all right with it. There needs to be proof of accomplishment, proof that look, they've done a great job retaining players. Their best players the last 2 years have stayed. They have shown the culture is right, but that only gets you so far.
Correct.
You got to put wins in the win column. Before that culture, you can have a great culture. Great culture doesn't matter at 5 and 7. B.
That's right. No, and that's the thing is that it's at some point it's just the proof's got to be there. And I think that's the thing is that Cincinnati, Satterfield didn't get left with like a garbage program or anything like that.
No.
They had talent. Now I know there's always turnover and things of that nature when a coach leaves. So I understand all that, but Cincinnati was a good program. I mean, it was, and they got to get back there. In my opinion, I think it's too good of a football program for where it was to kind of go through the struggles that it has. I know it happens. I mean, it's football, especially with the rules changing. It seems like every other second, something else happens in college football that changes. But I think Cincinnati is at the point to where, okay, we're good. We have a load of, which again, I don't know in Big 12 country if they understand how good the high school football is in Ohio. I'll be honest, Chad, I don't think people understand that. I do because I'm from that, Louisville, so I get it. But I don't think enough people understand how good it is. And how good the recruiting is, even though it's not Ohio State, but that doesn't matter. There's plenty of really good football players And I think Cincinnati's got an opportunity to get back there on that front.
Yeah, I mean, the recruiting's been interesting because they were not a staff that had deep ties in Ohio. They were in Ohio some while they were at Louisville, but that wasn't their forte. And the state is really difficult to recruit. I mean, Ohio State gets what they want.
Yep.
Notre Dame with Marcus Freeman gets what he wants out of the state. And then you're seeing the Big Ten. There was a couple years where Michigan just didn't recruit the state of Ohio. But now they're back in Ohio, and you're getting a lot of the other Big Ten schools that are dipping in. So the competition's fierce. They're still doing okay. They're not producing the results Luke Fickell did in Ohio, but he also had every high school coach in the state on speed dial from his 15 years at Ohio State. So it's taking a little time, but I think the roster is in good shape. I genuinely watching spring ball, looked at this roster and said they are far ahead of where they were year one going into the Big 12. And I think there's improvements over year two in the Big 12. Is that going to result to more wins? We're going to find out. But I think in terms of roster construction, I don't look at a bunch of holes. You knew in year one, they had lost a lot. You had, Sauce Gardner and Kobe Bryant and all those guys 2 years before Fickell left. And then they lost 4 more guys to the NFL the year that Fickell left. It wasn't a roster that was in the type of shape it should have been in.
Gotcha.
But AAC schools aren't built to replace 15 NFL guys in 2 years.
That's right.
That's not that, he hit on an incredible rate. And then there was going to be some time it took to kind of replenish the well. I think they've done that. I think they look bigger. They look more athletic. They look like they've got more length. But and a lot of it comes down to Brendan Sorsby. Let's be honest about it. When they were good, when they were 5-2, Brendan Sorsby was playing really, really well.
Right.
And then 0-5 down the stretch, he did not have that type of success.
Well, and let's stick right there because that was going to be my next question about Brendan Sorsby. You're right. When they were playing well, he was well. What happened? What happened where he fell off and just didn't play well down the stretch?
I think some of it was getting the offense on tape.
Gotcha.
There really was only one pretty high level receiver in Xavier Henderson.
Right.
And then when teams started figuring out how to take away Henderson and Joe Royer, the tight end, who's projected to be a pretty high draft pick next year, teams started focusing on those two, and the offense kind of sputtered. And I think Sorsby started to take some chances. Started to feel like, he needed to be Superman. If you go back and watch that West Virginia game, he gave away 17 points.
Yep.
In a game that they lost by 1 score.
Yep.
So, I think a culmination of things, but I think ultimately he was still young and he was still learning, and he got to a situation where he tried to do too much and maybe felt the weight of getting that 6th win and didn't produce. And, that's something they have to fix. But also, if you look at that schedule, we called this on Bearcat Journal going into the season. You're going to be able to rack up wins through those first 6-7 games. And then you better hold on to your butt the last 5.
Right.
At Kansas State, at Iowa State, West Virginia. It was going to get considerably tougher as the schedule wore on. And it didn't feel like they got a lot better as the season wore on, if that's fair. It felt like, you want to see your teams doing this. It felt like they kind of plateaued after that Arizona State win. And that can't happen. Can't happen in this league. Too many close games, too many teams that are all kind of bunched up. And if you're flat, you're going to get beat.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And it's part of what the Big 12 is. It's just, team, if you don't come out, like it's what you said, everybody's pretty much bunched up together for the most part. And if you don't come out ready to go, you'll find yourself down 17-0 10 minutes into the game, and then you're playing catch up. Well, that's never a good sign or a good avenue to try to win football games. Moving on from there, Corey Kreiner, running back, how do they replace him? Who are they going to replace him with? Is that already been identified? Is it going to be by committee? Because I know he's an incredible running back for Cincinnati last year. Have they already identified that? Will it be by committee? What are they doing there at the running back position?
So it'll be predominantly two guys, I think. One, Evan Pryor, who was an Ohio State transfer, was high 4-star guy at Ohio State. He was kind of the home run hitter last year. And they worked with him throughout the winter, putting a little more, bulk on him, putting a little more muscle on him to get him a little bit better between the tackles. And then they went out in the transfer portal and they got a thumper. They went out and got Tyree Walker from Wisconsin, who was Wisconsin's starting back. He rushed for 950 yards last year in the Big Ten. I think that's usually a pretty good sign.
Yeah.
And Wisconsin leaned on the run game heavy, especially their quarterbacks got both, had two starters get hurt.
Right.
So they leaned on him heavy and he produced. So you've got kind of a speed, outside zone guy in Pryor. And then you've got that between the tackles guy and Walker that I think Scott Satterfield loves to run the football. That B. It's the backbone of his offense. And I think he's got two guys this year he can rely on. The question will be where Corey Kreiner was incredible was his balance at the point of contact. And a lot of plays that would have been 2-yard loss, 3-yard loss, Corey Kreiner was able to turn into a 3 or 4-yard gain.
Gotcha.
And that's 2nd and 10 or 2nd and 7. Which one you got?
Right.
2nd and 12, 2nd and 13, or 2nd and 7. Which one you got? Corey Kreiner produced a lot of 2nd and 7s. So, that's going to be interesting to watch as this offense develops. Can they, on those run downs, those 1st and 2nd downs, continue to get that positive yardage and put them in a position to open things up for Sorsby?
Sure. And one of the things, as we all know, and I know Cincinnati fans know, as far as getting on positive downs, staying in front of the sticks, is the offensive line. You talked about, some of these plays that kind of turned into 2nd and 7s. It could have been 2nd and 12s. How is the offensive line, how is that developing to be, maybe to help with getting into better situations? Is it developing better and looking better than what it was last year? And not that it was horrible last year. I'm not saying that, but at some point, are they developing?
It was a strength last year.
Right.
And then they lost their left tackle, their left guard, and their right guard.
Whew. That'll hurt you.
So they got 2 additions in the portal that are going to start. One of them's name's Taranteo. He was a Ball State multi-year starter. Very, very good. And then they went out in the spring portal and got a guy named Joe Cotton, who was the number 1 tackle in the portal this spring from North Dakota. So those 2 guys give you a lot of hope. And then they had somebody in Evan Tengestal who played a lot last year that was ready to plug in at guard. Gavin Gerhardt's back at center, and DeAndre Buford is back at right tackle. So it's a restructured offensive line, but they feel like they went out and got 2 Big 12 starter quality guys at left tackle and right guard. And then you fill in one spot and you feel a little bit better about things. The Cotton one's going to be interesting because there's some talk that a lot of people feel like he's an NFL type left tackle. Got the size, got the footwork, got the hands. So if he can be an anchor, because John Williams was outstanding, ended up getting drafted, coming off of what people were kind of down on him coming into 2024 and had such a outstanding season. He ends up getting picked in the 6th round. That's going to be a tough spot to replace, but they think Joe Cotton's up to the task.
Gotcha. So offensive line, again, like you said, was a strength going into the year. Guys get hurt. You lose that many offensive linemen. Look, I understand having depth, but that's tough. You lose one guy, okay. You lose two, you lose three. It's like, all right. What are we doing here? So I totally understand. It makes it difficult to move the football, man.
3 multi-year starters, Luke Kandra, who was one of the better guards in the country,
correct,
and D'Artagnan Tinsley are both getting their looks in the NFL. And I think both of them have a decent chance to, at worst, end up on a practice squad.
Correct.
So you lose 3 NFL guys, and you're not Alabama, right? It's going to be a process. So we'll see how it goes, but. I love Nick Cardwell. I'm guessing you were a big fan of him from his time at Louisville. He did an outstanding job developing offensive linemen. I think he's right at the top of the list of, if you ask me who are the best position coaches at Cincinnati, Nick Cardwell would be right there at the top. So we'll see what he can do. They have talent. Now let's see if he can get them together as a unit and play good football.
Gotcha. Defensive side of the ball, look, you can say what you want. I know he came back and played. I get it. But I'm just going to go out there and say that Dante Corleone wasn't healthy last year. I know he was back. I totally get it. But even psychologically, that's got to do something to you, Chad, what he went through, and then to come back. Even if they're telling you physically you're okay, I just don't think he was. I got to believe we're going to see a different human being, just a different human being in 2025 than what we saw in 2024, just from the mental aspect, physical aspect, all of it. I think we're going to get something special out of him this year.
I agree. I think he had a good year, but I don't think good is the standard for Dante Corleone.
Not for him, no.
And if you go watch, he gets so much attention that it's going to be difficult for him to have a great statistical presence.
Sure.
Because he's always got 2 and sometimes 3, because that's what you need to stop that man from getting where he wants to go. It's funny when you watch, when teams do accidentally make the decision to single up on him and whoever's across from him ends up 8 yards down the field because, the Godfather just rehomed them. I do think there's a better version of him. And I think he got better as the season went along, as you would expect. And you're right. The mortality of I've got blood clots in my lungs at 21, 22 years old. What is happening? Why is this happening? How do I get better? Am I going to lead a normal life? Those are all things that he had to deal with mentally. And I know it impacted him early. I think as he got back and finally got adjusted and got comfortable, you started to see the real Dante Corleone more often, but I don't think you ever saw it full blast, full-fledged what he can do. The other thing is they lost their starting ends to injury last year. So you're dealing with backups that are so defenses even more could say he's not beating us.
Right.
They don't have a starter on either edge. They've got guys that they're trying to fill holes with, but they're not at full speed. So we're putting 2 and 3 guys on him. He's not going to do anything to be able to get to our quarterback. So I think that's going to be a lot better. Those guys are both back, Micah Coleman and Jalen Hunt. So he's got more help. And there's a kid, remember this name, Marquez Parker.
Okay.
Who I think is going to be an outstanding addition. He played a little bit last year as a freshman. I think he's going to have a really big sophomore season on the edge for Cincinnati's defense.
Gotcha. And that was the thing is that, in total defense, Cincinnati was about middle of the pack last year. But the rush defense wasn't great. It finished 13th in the league, so it wasn't spectacular. Obviously, being in the Big 12, teams run the football and like to run the football. Got to shore that up. I'm assuming, like you said, using backup ends. And a lot of people don't think, Chad, that defensive ends, when you think of edge, all they think about is pass rush. And it's like, well, hold on a second. It's not just pass rush. Those guys got to make tackles. Teams run outside zones. You have to be able to set an edge out there. I go, that's kind of the difference. And I don't think enough people give credit for that on what a defensive end does in the run game, even if they're not making the tackle. If your defensive ends are literally getting reached and tight ends and tackles are getting to the second level, it's Katie bar the door. So, and if you got backups playing at both sides, that's a problem. I mean, it's a problem for anybody, not just Cincinnati. That's a problem for any football team if you have backups that can't set an edge there and help in the run game. What do they have coming in that can help with that this year?
Well, I would also say they went through the gauntlet last year in terms of playing running backs. Texas Tech, Tosh Brooks, UCF, Arizona State, West Virginia, Iowa State, Kansas State. Like, those teams were all looking to run and run and run and run and run. And Cincinnati's biggest problem through that end of the season, when you're playing those type of teams and you can't hold a lead,
right,
they're just going to lean on you. It doesn't matter how good, it's difficult to hold up on as a run defense in that situation.
Right.
The big guy to watch, I think, is going to be Jalen Hunt. He's a Michigan State transfer, had a good first season at Cincinnati, playing a lot inside as Corleone's backup, and then was slotted to play that, power and run stopping guy in a 3-man front, and then season-ending injury before camp, and he never really got to take that next step. Right. He's back. He's 100%. He looked good in the spring. I think that's really the biggest factor in this team becoming a better run defense. And then, like I said, Micah Coleman and Marquez Parker are going to be the two guys that get that rush edge spot opposite Corleone. So, but I think in terms of stopping the run, they'll rely heavily on Hunt. And then Jake Golday, the transfer linebacker that had a really good first season, looks to be, they've got their linebacker core all back. So I think if Tyson Vite and the Iowa State defense, the linebackers are the stars and have been at Iowa State for a long time.
Right.
I think he's got a chance to have 3 or 4 linebackers that could have really, really good years.
Got it. Taking a look at the schedule before I get you out of here, Chad. Week 1, I mean, Nebraska at Arrowhead. I didn't realize, when I was talking or doing some research before I talked to you, I didn't know that this game was supposed to be, it was a home-and-home series from back in 2020.
COVID. Yeah.
Yes. COVID. And then it got redone. Now, are they going to do the 2 games, or is it now just one game that they are going to do?
We'll see.
I'm assuming the we'll see means it's not really up to Cincinnati in that aspect.
Do I think Nebraska is going to bring Cincinnati to the land of the corn for a game? Maybe. Right. Because this game was it's in Arrowhead. It was supposed to be the game at Cincinnati. The game in 2020 that got canceled was the game that was supposed to be in Lincoln.
Okay.
So, we'll see. It's a possibility. The bright side, John Cunningham, Cincinnati's athletic director, is a Nebraska alum. So there is a connection there where you might see it worked out where the Nebraska game does get played in a couple years. But this one, Nebraska and Cincinnati decided they were going to play neutral. It got moved to Lucas Oil Stadium initially. And then the folks at Arrowhead, I think after having a season of Kansas playing there, we're like, hey, let's get some college games. Let's see if we can get some college games in here. They called and said, we'll give you X million more than you were going to get from Indianapolis to move the game to Arrowhead. Everybody needs money right now, B. You got to pay the players. That money's got to come from somewhere. So Cincinnati took it. Fans are upset, but hey, go win the game. It reminds me of, there is something it reminds me of, B. Luke Fickell's second year. His first year, they went 4-8, and they should have went 1-11. They were terrible his first year after replacing Tommy Tuberville. His second year, they went on the road to UCLA in the Rose Bowl. They beat the Bruins, and that kickstarted everything you saw from 2018 to 2022. And that one win, like if you ask those guys, they'll tell you that was the day we all looked at each other and said, we can do this. And they went on. I think they were predicted at best to be a 6-win team. They won 10. So go to Nebraska and win the game.
Yeah. And Nebraska's not unbeatable either.
No, they're good, but they're not great. Yeah, Matt Rule's talking a ton of smack. Yeah. Like put the bulletin board material on the board and go win the game.
Yeah. And I understand, Cincinnati fans being upset because that's an easy drive to Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Not so easy going to Kansas City. No. But I understand. Having said that, you're right, Chad. Just go win because that's the only thing that matters anyway. The game could have been at Cincinnati. You still got to win the football game. So it literally doesn't matter. I just think it's a huge opportunity to say, you know what? This is our chance. I mean, it's on ESPN. Everybody's going to be watching. I mean,
Thursday night.
Here you go.
Thursday night, 9:00.
Yes.
Labor Day weekend. Go win the game.
This is your chance to put yourself in a good position to set up for the season. Yep. I like it because you look at the schedule, I look at Cincinnati's schedule here. It's manageable. I'm not saying there's not tough games because it's the Big 12. So basically every game is a tough game, but it's manageable. I know you talked about some of your cohorts said 8 wins. I don't know about 8, but 7 is a strong possibility. But I think you got to win the first one. Let me take that back. To get to 8, you got to win the first one. To get to 8, you have to win that game. 7, you can still win 7 games without the first one. But I just think the first game, number one, everybody said, I know it's a cliche, it sets the tone for the season, but everybody's going to be talking about Nebraska because they're Big Ten, it's Nebraska. They're going to be overrated. We all know that. They're a good team, but they're not great. And I just think Cincinnati can go there and they win this football game. I think it just sets them up to have the kind of season that I think people are demanding that they have. I mean, we talked about that at the beginning, about, hey, is this a make or break season? Well, you know what? You got to win some football games. And this is a game I don't think that I would say more than 3/4 of the country is going to think that Nebraska is supposed to win. I think UC has an opportunity to go win that football game. And I like it to set up their season because you look at the rest of it, it's manageable, Chad. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the home slate in the Big 12, You've got Iowa State, UCF, Baylor, Arizona, and BYU. That's not a gauntlet. I mean, it's not easy, but it's not going to be easy. But that's not a lay down the gauntlet like you're going to go 1-4 at home. You shouldn't. You should be able to win 3-4 of those games. And then on the road, it's also Kansas. I don't know what to think of Kansas yet this year. Oklahoma State. We know Gundy coming off a bad year usually bounces back, but Ollie Gordon's gone. Like, they're not dynamite. Utah will be a tough one. TCU will be. I don't know. I'm not a big Sonny Dykes guy. I watched him coach at SMU. I watched Luke Fickell be his daddy for like 4 years. So I'm not as high on Sonny Dykes as maybe some. You can go win that game. Yeah. I think there's very much a chance to 4-3, going into that last stretch of the season, and then see if you can get to 7 or 8 wins.
Yeah, they got a chance. They really do. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm excited for, number one, I'm excited for the football season. But like I said, I got a love-hate relationship with Bearcat fans, so they don't like me because I think last year at the very beginning of the year, I said, hey, I'm from Louisville. Scott Satterfield's not my favorite guy, and they never let me forget that.
We didn't even tell them the bad part. You wanted to really not allow you, like you. I'll tell them the bad part.
Yeah, I didn't tell him that I went to Xavier either. I didn't mention that. I didn't mention that, which I know is going to be even worse. So, well, Chad, man, I always have a great time talking to you. I really, really appreciate you giving us some time today because you don't have to. Like I said, it's the dog days of summer. I know I'll be talking to you before the season starts and then during the season as well. So Just so everybody's out here, I'm sure they all know where you're at, but just in case they don't, let everybody know where they can find the stuff that you do.
You can find me on Twitter because I don't say the new name for obvious reasons. Find me on Twitter at Chad Brendel, and then on all the other social media platforms at Bearcat Journal. We're on Twitch, we're on YouTube, we're on Snapchat, we're you name it, TikTok, you can find us. We're producing content everywhere. So thanks, B. I always love coming on, talking ball with you, man. Much appreciated. And anytime you need me, let me know.
I appreciate it. Thanks everybody again for joining us today. We will be back with you guys next week. So appreciate it, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.